March, but you know, crazy times. So want to introduce you to some things that we're doing at the Baker University Wetlands, some new initiatives. But before I get into that, I want to do a little bit of history because that puts things in context for us a little bit of where we're going and what we're doing. So hopefully this isn't something that, hopefully for those of you who know Baker Wetlands, I don't get it too wrong and that I don't bore you too much with some of this information first. So I want to kind of go back to the early 1900s, late 1800s, when the Bureau of Indian Affairs purchased land for the Haskell Institute. And the mission at that time was to use the land for Haskell for farming. And so they used the land to teach their students how to do these things. And so in lieu of doing that, you know, it's a floodplain that we're sitting in. And so there was a lot of different drainage things that happened. And you can see, I think most closely in this picture here, where they've put in these ditches and they're cropping in between the ditches. And that allows the water to you know, concentrate here as opposed to where they're actually putting the crops. And I've heard these referred to as W ditches. And we'll see another aerial picture here in a minute of them being across the wetlands. So there's various drainage that happens to convert this wetlands into farmland. By 1934, Haskell's mission has changed, and Haskell is no longer using the land to teach their students how to farm, but they're leasing the land to area farmers. And so farming continues on this land until sometime in the 1950s. And at that time, the Bureau of Indian Affairs declares the land surplus. And so there's kind of, you know, another 10, 15 years of various things going on. And then in 1967, we transfer the land gets transferred to the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. And that is in 1968, we get, Baker University gets this 573 acres. And so our mission from the beginning has been education, research, and preservation. And, you know, upon receiving this land, the initial efforts were to restore the natural ecosystem functioning to the floodplains. So I have a picture here of the original wetlands with the original boardwalk, and also the recognition that we have that we are registered natural landmark, which gives us some benefits, but also, you know, helps protect the land as well. Okay, so this is what the land looked like in 1987. So the parcel was drained, 80% cultivated. You'll see here that I've got a couple things marked off of where these were virgin wet meadows. So 30 acres here and 15 acres here that were virgin wet meadows. They'd never been plowed, but they had been drained. And you can see here evidence of that W ditching. You can see kind of how the landscape has been manipulated to help move that water off. And I've lost my, so in the 1970s, we get Clinton Dam. Dr. Ivan Boyd at that time then assumes that the Wakarusa is not going to flood anymore. Also knowing that part of the hydrology that got changed by Haskell was to build up the banks of the Wakarusa. So between Clinton Dam getting constructed and the changes that Haskell made to the hydrology, including raising the levees around Wakarusa, we assumed that there would be no more flooding on this land. And so his initial efforts were to begin the restoration with native grasses. So taking out the cultivated fields and replacing them with native grasses. Okay. So fast forward then to the 1990s. In the 1990s, now Dr. Roger Boyd is in charge, and at this time, there are 4 grants that are received, you know, between 1991 and 1995. And in this grant process, sorry, I'm going the wrong way, sorry. One more, I apologize. So in this process, water control structures were found and removed, and then kind of trying to restore the hydrology, add some controls. And so in doing this, we begin to be able to bring back the hydrology. And with a lot of systems, when the disturbing factor comes back, the system begins to go back to what it was before. So just like a glade, if you stop burning a glade for a period of time, and then, you know, other things encroach, woody plants, cedar trees, that kind of thing. If you then burn it and get the cedar trees off, if you have enough seeds in the seed bank from that original glade, the glade kind of comes back. And I think we see that same thing here with flooded systems, that we bring back the key disturbance, and if the seed bank is intact and things like that, we can get the native vegetation back. And so this is how things looked in 1995. And so all the yellow that you see here in the fields, or a lot of the yellow that you see here in the fields, is Burma Marigold, or Biden's Artiso. Wow, I am so tongue-tied this morning, I'm sorry. But these are characteristic of seasonal wetland areas. And so this plant was just kind of demonstrating to us, to the Boyds, that you know, bringing the hydrology back starts to bring some of the plants back. Okay, so fast forward again, we have the South Lawrence Traffic Way, and prior to the traffic way going in, some of the land to the west side of the Baker Wetlands property, we began mitigation for that project. And so here you see a lot of large equipment that begins to set up water control structures and begins to set up the swales and the pools that we will eventually have on that western side of the property. And so this is what that western side looks like. So here is the house that was there originally. So you can imagine the Discovery Center is like right in this area here. And then you can see the various pools that were created. So this is that very deep lake where we have, you know, and this is the area where the boardwalk is. And so just kind of seeing that that restoration is happening. And then of course the South Lawrence Traffic Way goes in. And this is kind of an overview of what the property looks like now in terms of how things are set up. And so just kind of, this is our basic map, but you can see where the South Lawrence Traffic Way comes, or where the shared use trail comes through. And then you can kind of see on this map how things have been restored in time. So we've got our virgin wet meadows, 15 acres on the east side, 30 acres on the west. And then you'll notice some of the, we've got these areas that were restored over time. And so we've got some restoration that happened in the 70s, some that happened in the 80s, some that happened in the 90s. And then what I haven't specifically marked on here is that everything over here, like tract A and where the tract B, that was all done in the early 2000s, so 2008, 2009. And then over here on the east side, this came later with the mitigation and with the SLT. And so there's some woodland restoration down in this area. And so what we have set up here then is this really interesting chrono sequence, if you will. We've got some original land, we've got some stuff that has been restored in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. And so we have really kind of a successional series here. And so that opens the door up to some, I think, interesting research questions. And so I want to kind of make you guys also aware of a couple things that we've recently added. And so this is our new research laboratory facility. Prior to this, it was a research lab that more looked like a conference room / kitchen. But now it's a relatively well-stocked research facility that we can use for classes, or we can use for independent research projects, we can use for visiting scientists, and so forth. So that just opened in January. We've had a few people use it, but not too many yet. These are strange times. We've also taken the residence that's on property and we've converted it into, if you will, kind of a bunkhouse for visiting scholars and students. And so we have it set up with a main bedroom, the master bedroom being someplace that, like, with a queen size bed that faculty could sleep in. We've got a full kitchen, living room area, and then we've got a couple rooms that can be used for students, so including bunk beds and things like that. And so one of the ideas is to have an exchange program where students and faculty from other institutions can come. Maybe they spend a week or two with us in the summer, or even in the fall or winter, whenever they want to come out. We can house about 8 to 10 students in the house. And trying to create an exchange program from our students too, that we would be able to maybe trade. We go visit their research station, they could come visit ours. And I realize that KU is right nearby and you guys might not have any reason to use the Maple residence, but just kind of letting you know that that facility exists for visiting scientists and students. The other exciting thing that's coming up is that this summer we submitted a grant to the Improvements to Biological Field Stations and Marine Laboratories program with the NSF. And we're hoping to convert some of our shop space into another kind of laboratory, an area where you could really bring in things that were really dirty, muddy, what have you, and have lab benches and sinks and different equipment in here that you could use. And then we're also hoping with this, if we get this grant, the big piece will be an outdoor classroom that will sit not too far away from the Discovery Center that we can use for educational opportunities, whether we're doing it in-house, doing our own programs out there, or having presentations to the public or presentations by other scientists in this facility. So that we are waiting to hear on that. The last we heard, we were under review for that. And so if that happens, we'll start construction probably after the first of the year. And so I'm here kind of making this invitation to the group and to those beyond the group, if you have the opportunity to share this with other people, of coming out and using the Baker University wetlands and using the Wakarusa Field Station for research endeavors. So there's a lot of natural history that can be done. I was just speaking with, this is Scott Kimball, one of my colleagues at Baker. I was just speaking to him about a small mammal project that's probably going to happen at the wetlands this spring. He and his students do a lot with the area where the tornado went through and looking at a successional study there. He's also doing a successional study in the riparian woodlands habitat. But really a lot of this is in successional status and could be successional studies or natural history studies. We had one of the professors from KU come out recently and do some water quality sampling. She's a hydrologist with KU, Amy Hansen, I believe is her last name. And so she's looking at this as a potential, like, could this be a field site for her and her students? Couldn't we ask a research question that would be interesting to get funding and collaborate with her? So looking at water quality, looking at hydrology, and we're doing some of our own water quality. There's also like management and monitoring that could happen. And this again could be student-led or grant facilitated. So we've just recently put in a Clemson beaver dam structure. So we've got a beaver dam right here. And we put in this Clemson structure that allows us to keep the beaver dam, but also keep our water flow. And so, that might be an opportunity for some research. We do controlled burns. So doing soil or plant analysis before and after, or small mammal analysis before and after fires. We have a series of nest boxes that can also be manipulated. So there's a lot of management monitoring that can happen, and so forth. And of course, we do a lot with our staff, and we do a lot with our students, but opening the door to other scientists. And so we want to open that door that people can come and do research with us. We want to open the door that you could bring your students out and do field laboratory sessions. And so some of it could be in the laboratory proper. We can seat about 8 to 10 people in the laboratory, but then some of it is out on the field. So these are examples of some of what my colleague has done with monarch tagging and measurements, with bird behavior studies. Here, mist nets are up, trapping birds, doing some water quality analyses out here, that kind of thing. And so the door is really open. I'm not limited to just having Baker students and Baker faculty and Baker research happening. The door is open for KU and beyond to use the facility for research and to use the facility for teaching and so forth. And so this is an open invitation. And the other thing I wanted to kind of invite you to is that I do have an open position, and I wanted to advertise that through this network as well, that I currently have an open position as my natural areas manager. And so this person would be developing and implementing a management plan for the wildlife habitats. I really want to base things in scientific principles. I want to be looking to enhance biodiversity and reduce or eradicate invasive species, and of course have a functional wetland on the property. So I am looking for somebody who can be pretty independent self-starter. So I'm looking for somebody that has a master's degree, has a good background in habitat management, but also kind of is a handyman or handywoman kind of person. So they know how to run the various equipment and power tools, and are able to maintain equipment and so forth, or at least be willing to be trained in that. And so I wanted to post that opportunity as well. And I realize this is maybe the shortest talk you've ever had, but that's really all I had planned in the slides. And I was just hoping then to, have a conversation with people about these opportunities, and, brainstorm, or I don't know what else we want to do, but that's all I had really put together. So.
Excellent. I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and then I think Helen just had an announcement, and we can, it can exactly be that, is just a conversation. So
Okay.
Helen, go for it.